Should Shelley, still not believing in God, but still perhaps believing in demons, walk down Oxford's High Street to the former site of Slatter and Monday's bookshop, he'd find in its place a branch of Lloyd's TSB, a fluorescent temple to the golden calf. No letterpress pamphlets lovingly stitched, but colour brochures inviting conversion to the banker's religion. For instead of Shelley, there are now display panels to interest passers-by in interest rates, with cash dispensers to prove the existence of a money god, whose religion's compulsory, even for atheists. The first thing to greet visitors at Oxford Station, expecting gentle scholars or a Jude the Obscure, is a starkly designed business school for the money cult's acolytes, built by an arms trader billionaire. It's succeeded by spiny fortresses plying for business by boasting of their success in producing a governing class. For each, Oxford College lures the gullible into spending their life paying off loans to buy Oxford's trade secrets. Mammon stifles the dreams of the dreaming spires, for these turreted antennae are tuned to investment, ensuring scholarship for its own sake is thought redundant, unless it can be sold with a business model. And the soulful shops that Oxford once had, devoted to vinyl and second-hand books, are priced out by large chains selling sweatshop products, due to progressive councils favouring clone towns. In Queen Mab, Shelley singled out selfishness as the twin sister of religion. To him, selfishness was the great delusion's companion, its rival in crime and falsehood. Then, as now, Mammon keeps such selfishness supplied with tricks for storing up treasure on earth. Mammon's sly deceivers with their gilt-edged serpents in their fake Edens concocted from debt. Economic charlatans who claim to see the future and market a financial pie in the sky, only to dash people's hopes as their coins dwindle away, for there is no real wealth but the labour of man. As the student whom Oxford spurned, Oxford's socialist anarchist once said, before adding, "The man of virtuous soul commands not, nor obeys." In this, he'd echo the 11-year-old Shelley, who'd frequently sign off his letters, "Now I end. I am not your obedient servant, P.B. Shelley." Since childhood, his own man. And a boy who grew up hating excess, most of all monetary wealth. A mausoleum now depicts Shelley's 29-year-old corpse, with his body held up by winged lions. Lions to continue to roar his words. Winged lions to fan his furnace of insurgent poems and visionary perception, to set the world on a different course. Shelley saw commerce has set the mark of selfishness. He warned against gold's all-enslaving power. Gold is a living god, and rules in scorn all earthly things but virtue. Shelley also despised money's fueling war, for war is a kind of superstition. The pageantry of arms and badges corrupts the imagination of men. Shelley wrote the first atheist tract printed in English, scaring Oxford into behaving like a child, unable to respond except by bigotedly expelling the rationalist who'd ruffled its feathers. Oxford agreed with the London Courier, a Tory paper, in publishing an obituary of Shelley, which began, "Shelley, the writer of some infidel poetry, has been drowned. Now he knows whether there is a God or no." But Byron's verdict would flush away their vicious sneers. You are all brutally mistaken about Shelley. He was the best and least selfish man I knew, an atheist who could also be the supreme altruist. And the empathy expressed in Shelley's lines, the fainting Indian on his native plains writhes to superior's powers unnumbered pains, prompted Krishnamurti to say, Shelley is as sacred as the Bible. Ah, did you once see Shelley plain, and did he stop and speak to you? An awe-struck Robert Browning once asked an old man, rumoured to have met Shelley in his youth. When Shelley was expelled from Oxford, he'd walk from Sussex to Wales to help reclaim Traeth Mawr Marsh in Tremarok and to defend Luddites, now being hanged by the state. He'd left to escape from suspicion, coldness, and villainy, that now took the shape of Home Office spies. But in Wales he was refreshed by being embosomed in the solitude of Wales's mountains, and woods and rivers, silent, solitary, and old. He stayed at Cwm Ilan, outside Rhyadar, a place where every beauty seems centred, though all of it was destined to be submerged. For the houses Shelley lived in, Cwm Ilan, and then Nantgwyllt, along with the village of Llanwydn, would be swallowed up, poisoned by progress and greed. The river Clærwen was dammed and flooded, so England's satanic mills could steal its water, replacing the water that capitalism had contaminated with the deadly dust of industrial progress. But if poets were the legislators of the world, as Shelley, prophetic poet, had wished, the valley's water would be as pure as it once was, and the beauties of Clærwen be unburied. An old woman who delivered post to Cwm Ilan would remember. He was a very strange gentleman. He wore a little cap and had his neck bare. He loved to sail a wooden boat about a foot in length, and he'd run along the banks of the mountain streams, using a pole to direct his little craft through the rapids and keep it from shipwreck on the rocks. Shelley sensed an organic unity that pervaded living things, and 2 centuries before New Age and Gaian thinking, he was painting pictures of ecological harmony in Prometheus Unbound. Henceforth, all plants and creeping forms, and insects rainbow-winged, and birds and beasts and fish and human shapes shall take and interchange sweet nutriment. Shelley foresaw a Gaian love. In the motion of the very leaves of spring, in the blue air, there is then found a secret correspondence with our heart. There is eloquence in the tongueless wind, and a melody in the flowing of brooks and the rustling of the reeds beside them, which, by their inconceivable relation to something within the soul, awaken the spirits to a dance of breathless rapture, and bring tears of mysterious tenderness to the eyes. Words that indicate a union with nature, if not even a worship of Pan. Shelley pursued images of unifying love in An Eden with No Angry Fathers.